Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the #1 hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
Welcome to My Celluloid Heart podcast, season 3, episode 123. We're already at 123. If you're new to this podcast, normally we take two movies that are deep in our head and heart and put them together over 2 episodes by one topic or theme with some facts to go with it. And there will be spoilers. And yeah, I'm going to change that writing. I wrote that all convoluted. I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I'm here with
his cousin Chip.
Yay.
Hello, everyone.
Ba-dum-bum. So
when you do that, I automatically my brain goes into dun, 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 dun. It's time to get things started.
I was just thinking of the Muppets, but when you started that way, I was I was thinking Muppets as well. But yeah, because it's that end thing. Well, one of them pops up, Ralph or whoever. Did you watch Army of Thieves? They have a guy on there named Rolf, like ROLPH.
Nice.
And he's like, your name's Ralph. And I'm like, why is he making fun? And I go, oh, maybe it's a Muppet thing. But anyway, let me get some water and then we're going to make some corrections.
The hell? You just became an old lady that smokes too much.
I know, right? I think I need more coffee. So corrections.
You just need to scream into the mic. Tell him Large Marge sent ya.
That's a great movie. So corrections. We're going to do some corrections from last week. So let's introduce that segment.
You were wrong. Wrong. Finger guns. Wrong in your weenie.
So I said James Darling last week when I was reading an opinion. I said James Darling from being James Bond. His name's James Darlington. So it didn't matter to anybody. If he was listening, he might go, you got my name wrong. But if he wasn't, he wouldn't care. But when I listen to it, I go, oh, I got that wrong. And I write it down. And then I go, oh, wait. And I'm not narcissistic. I listen to it to see how the sound levels are and everything. Anyway, and Brian Bloom. It's true, Chip. Don't give me that look. You can't see it on the podcast. Chip gave me a look of like, I don't know, you might be a little narcissistic. No, I am not. Brian Bloom was the actor's name that was in the Bandit TV movie.
Yes, and he does voice acting now.
And he's in video game stuff. I saw him in, and he was in the A-Team. He was a bad guy in the A-Team.
Yeah. I think he does like a lot of Marvel stuff. I think he does like the voice for, I don't know if it's Wolverine. Maybe it's Wolverine. I think he might be the main voice for Wolverine now or something like that.
Cool. So those are all the corrections. And now on with the show.
Yeah.
Reckless driving, disorderly conduct,
Give me somebody.
and destruction of public property. These are the tricks of the trade in the Cannonball Run, starring Burt Reynolds, Roger Moore, Farrah Fawcett, Dom DeLuise, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. You'll root for them all, but you'll never guess who wins. The Cannonball Run. Rated PG. Starts Friday at a selected theater near you.
The Cannonball Run, 1981. The plot, a wide variety of eccentric competitors participate in a wild and illegal cross-country road race. However, the eccentric entrants will do anything to win the road race, including low-down, dirty tricks. These guys are communist pedophiles. Oh, give me a reason to shoot. I hope I can shoot them in the face. That's right. Chip just gave a thumbs up. He forgets we're on a podcast. He's thinking we're doing YouTube videos. Stars Burt Reynolds as J.J. McClure, Roger Moore as Seymour Goldfarb. So Hal Needham said they changed that James Bond theme just like by one note just to get away with it. So
Yep.
he's like, he goes, but we did that. He said, and then kind of made him like, he's driving the DB5. He's James Bond or he's Roger Moore. The way he's talking is like, oh, well, I was in a TV show that's still in syndication. It's like, so is he talking about the Saint and like going on? And so at one point though, Albert Broccoli called Hal Needham in to maybe direct a James Bond movie. And so when he gets in there, the first thing Albert Broccoli says is, I should have probably sued you for Cannonball Run. And he's like, no, we're good. So because, he's like, we got lucky, where, they didn't get upset. And he said, Roger Moore.
I was listening to that when I was watching it. I kept listening. Every time it came on, I was listening. I was like, that is off by just a smidge.
And he said, Roger Moore is like not the guy you think of. Like, he's real funny. You get him a little loose with some drinks and he'd tell some hilarious stories and just a real raconteur and everything.
Nice.
Farrah Fawcett is Pamela Glover. Dom DeLuise is Victor Prinzim. Dean Martin is Jamie Blake. Sammy Davis Jr. as Fenderbaum. So Don Rickles, he has that Fenderbaum name because he sounds Jewish like Don Rickles. But Don Rickles was approached to be in the movie. And Don Rickles is like, hang on, Dom DeLuise has top billing over me. He's like, but I'm playing Vegas shows. He's not playing Vegas shows. Like, I'm important, And it would have been cool to have another part of kind of the Rat Pack, even though he wasn't, performing in the clubs with, Peter Lawford and all them and Frank Sinatra and stuff. But it still would have been good to have him and Dean Martin playing off each other. But it worked great with him and Sammy. And what was cool with that, they were just saying like they had such a good time that's when Frank Sinatra was like, well, how come nobody invited me? So for part 2 is when they call Frank Sinatra and they're like, you want to do this? And Hal Needham says, so I show up on the set. I'm doing a location shooting somewhere. He goes, I show up on set because I know we have him for like a day, maybe 2. And he goes, I get there. He's already there. He's already been to makeup, total professional, like ready to shoot. And he's like, okay. So, but they said, yeah, the whole thing, like everything was improv, just like Smokey the Bandit. Like they would tell him like, do this. And then at the end of the day, they'd go and watch dailies and they'd all be like, he goes, of course they had a few drinks in them. So they're laughing even more. But then he was like, if you get the crew or the cast to laugh at something, that helped him with editing of like, that was funny. They like that. I'm going to put that in.
Yeah.
So that could hurt, that could hinder it or help it, goes both ways, somebody could go, I'm great at that moment,
It makes sense though when he's talking about them getting drinks in them, because I was wondering about that first scene with Dean Martin. He looks a little lit, like just in his eyes, he looks lit, and I was like, damn.
Like I'm not sure. There's a podcast called "You Must Remember This," and she goes through like Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis's, going all the way up and then splitting, and then Sammy Davis Jr. and all them, and so I'm not sure if he was. I mean, he seems that way in the roast. He's like drunk and like, half lit all the time. So I think that's how he got pretty much at the end. But yeah, you're just like, oh my God, did somebody leave a leather recliner out in the sun? Oh, that's Dean Martin. Respects Dean Martin. Jack Elam is Dr. Nicholas Van Helsing. It wrote helping because fucking autocorrect. Adrienne Barbeau is Marcy. I'm sorry I didn't get the other girl's name, but that was a friend of Hal Needham's, the blonde girl. Terry Bradshaw is Terry, real stretch. Mel Tillis is Mel, another stretch. So they were going to film a pilot movie with just Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw. They had it set up. This guy gave them the go-ahead, green light to do it. This executive, and then all of a sudden that executive either got fired or left the studio and they had no movie and they were like, oh shit. But on the audio commentary, Hal Needham and the producer are like, you had some good stuff in there. Like that was a funny script. Like they had some crazy stuff. So that would have been neat. Jamie Farr as Sheik, and Jackie Chan as Subaru driver number 1. So written by Brock Yates. So the film is based on 1979 running of the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash, an actual cross-country outlaw road race held 4 times in the 1970s, starting at the Red Ball Garage on 31st Street in New York, later the Lock, Stock, and Barrel Restaurant in Darien, Connecticut, and ending at Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach, California, in Los Angeles. So the screenwriter was automotive journalist. He still is now. He writes for Car and Driver and all these magazines, Brock Yates, who had conceived the real-life Cannonball Baker event. Yates had originally proposed the race as a writer for Car and Driver. The race had only one rule, quote, all competitors will drive any vehicle of their choosing over any route at any speed they judge practical between the starting point and destination. The competitor finishing with the lowest elapsed time is the winner, unquote. And it's directed by Hal Needham. So this part's just cool. I'll get to it later, but I'll tell you now, Brock Yates is a guy that's giving them the instructions and he looks like an actor, but he's not. He looks like that guy. I think you know the guy I mean. I can't think of him, but he looks just like that guy. And you're like, oh, that's that guy. But then you're like, no, that's Brock Yates. That's not an actor. He's a guy that writes for, auto magazines. But anyway, here's what's cool. Yates and Needham worked on a script, and Al Ruddy became attached as producer. He's the guy that's on the audio commentary. They wanted Reynolds to star, but he was reluctant to make more car-themed films. He was eventually persuaded by Needham's promise to keep the actor's schedule to only 14 days of filming and a fee of $5 million plus a percentage of the profits. Finance came from Raymond Chow of Golden Harvest, who requested that Jackie Chan be included in the cast. So Golden Harvest does When We Saw the Killer, Hard Boiled, does all the.
That's what I was wondering. I was watching the intro and I saw it say Golden Harvest. And I went, what the fuck?
Yeah. And so then they're like, put Jackie Chan in it. And that was right then around the 80s when they did, I think they did The Big Brawl, where they tried to bring him to America and have him be like Bruce Lee and do like The Big Boss, but it was called The Big Brawl. And that one didn't work. And then they did that one with Danny Aiello that, Jackie Chan doesn't like because he wanted to edit it a certain way and they wouldn't let him. And they're like, no. So that was 85 and he's still trying to make it. And then as you and I talked about till we're blue in the face, he doesn't get his chance until like 94, 95. And all of a sudden, boom, So, he was already big in Hong Kong. So, quote, this is from Burt Reynolds. I did that film for all the wrong reasons, said Reynolds later. I never liked it. I did it to help out a friend of mine, Hal Needham. And I also felt it was immoral to turn down that kind of money. I suppose I sold out, so I couldn't really object to what people wrote about me. So, which is true. So how did this movie come into your life?
Cable, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was introduced by anybody. I think it was one of those things where I was like, what the hell is this? This is funny, and you just keep watching it. And then every time it was on, you had to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, I believe I went to the theater and saw this. And I just remember, and still to this day, that opening, like I told you last time, I can't find the soundtrack and I can't find just that song by that guy, Cannonball, Cannonball. That opening alone just puts a smile on your face. And you're just watching that Lamborghini like drives up behind the cop and and then goes around him like.
But I realized like I'm sitting here watching this going, why does this intro, at least the intro, once the intro is done and it moves on, everything looks cleaner. But you watch this intro and it looks like you're watching it through like you put a stocking cap over your fucking eyes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like so hazy looking that I was like, what in the hell's going on? And then it was compounded a little bit from the very first scene that you see Burt Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how much makeup is on his face.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is happening? It was like the first 10 minutes of the movie. I'm like, I'm fucking confused. What's going on?
That's probably your Blu-ray they really high def your
Oh,
Blu-ray.
probably.
Like, wow, like my DVD looked okay, but yeah, sometimes you're like notice more things on Blu-rays where you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I saw this in the, and then of course on cable, whenever it was like my favorite. Like I love the Lamborghini. I talked about that. I had the little car, the Cannonball Run car that I bought was, it was not just a Lamborghini, it was Cannonball Run Lamborghini. And the doors opened and everything is really cool. And I like the girls because I like boobs. So I liked Adrienne Barbeau, of course. And then after you said we should watch Swamp Thing, and I said I haven't seen it, I had to go incognito on my Google and be like, Swamp Thing, Adrienne Barbeau naked, and she is. And I was like, that's why Chip's like, we got to do Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. And then yeah, so those girls like that chase, and then like the Trans Am is a cop car, like that was cool.
Yep.
But then just that opening song just gets you in the mood, and then you're like, okay. And then them landing to, we'll get to that in a minute after listener opinions, but them going to pick up beer and all that. And I didn't notice until the audio commentary that plane flies under some wires to
Yes.
land. I
Yeah.
didn't notice those wires. I just thought, oh, it's just landing. No, they go this, how Needham goes. I told him, I'll pay you, he goes, I know a guy does plane stuff. I said, can you land here? We had the governor close everything down, landed it. He said he went under that wire. I knew he could do it. He said, you see, he's got that front end way up. He's trying to stop that thing. And he's like, it was amazing. Same thing with, he got one of his stunt buddies also and was like, I'll pay you $1 million. You want to drive a motorcycle out of the back of an airplane? And the guy's like, yeah, I'll do it. And he goes, what if you get tangled up? And the guy goes, don't worry about it. I'll do it. And he did it. And he said, Hal Needham goes, but that's dangerous. If you get tangled up in that motorcycle, like you're done. Like, so, luckily that all worked. But anyway, let's get to some listener opinions. There's a lot of them.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it!
Opinions vary.
So Inception, it was like I_N_C all the way through Inception. Wrote iconic 80s classic with a heart eye emoji. Sirius Black, 1972. It might be your wife, but 1972, probably not. I know. Sirius Black, 1972, wrote The Doc and a laugh crying emoji. And that's true. He might be the unsung hero of this whole thing. Like, I was really watching him this time, and his just little thing, him drinking when he gives himself the injection, the guy's like, how does it taste? And he goes, Dean Martin's like, how does it taste? AGM 538 wrote best run movie forever. 3 fire emojis, 8 smile wink emojis, 1 heart kiss emoji, and a thumb up emoji. Bodo 74FE wrote the best movie of all time. It was like exclamation point of all time. Great actors, great scenes, good story, fantastic. Patrick Goost wrote a staple in automotive experience. Mags Hill 56 wrote, well, wasn't keen. Sorry. I said, I understand. Marks Milano wrote classic. Leon AFL 1965 Hotmail.com wrote, it would be nice if they played their old movies on TV again. I can't find anywhere to watch them anymore. So then I told him, well, you can find the DVD and the other one is streaming, part 2. M_M_Mike 194 wrote, Mel Tillis is the most underrated part of Cannonball Run. He's funny, but I'm wondering, some people who don't know Mel Tillis might think that's an actor doing a stutter. But
yeah.
And that's my thing with Mel Tillis. You would think, in a way, if somebody wants you to stutter, that would be hard to make yourself stutter, especially if you were more comfortable and you're laughing with some friends, or you and Terry Bradshaw become real good friends, and now you're just talking and they're like, no, you're supposed to do that stutter.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also wondering, when I was watching it, I was wondering if it was a like, because it's a movie that's all kind of just everybody makes up their own lines and kind of just does their own thing. They kind of have a plan, but they kind of just let him go.
Yeah.
He's such a master at just, he probably makes people laugh when he's not even trying.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, this will be easy.
and that's something else, talking about the doctor, where Hal Needham was like, I knew Jack Elam. He said he used to be an accountant back in the day. And then his doctor was like, you can't do accounting anymore because you're going to fuck up your eyes. So then he went into acting. And for me, I think I told you, and I was telling my dad for sure, it's weird that Jack Elam became an actor and became kind of where he was in the step because of his eyes. He's got that weird look, but like, boom, he's awesome. Real Cannonball wrote a classic and guilty pleasure of millions of fans still today. A relaunch movie and a feature documentary are in the works. So that's cool. I said awesome. Stingray Jones 88 wrote 3 heart emojis. I love this movie! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And then 3 more heart emojis. RDES 6565 wrote great childhood memories from this movie. Loved it. Cannonball GMC wrote magnificent. Allegedly, it's still run today with a shh emoji. Don't tell anybody. And so I did look that up. I don't know if it was ran this year, but in 2020, when the roads were pretty much everybody was inside, nobody's out, people were like, let's run the Cannonball. And they ran it, and they did it in like 27 hours, when before it was like the quickest time was like 35 or something like that. They did in 27 hours with like I think it was a Mercedes with like these big giant fuel tanks in the back and the trunk, and just didn't get any tickets and ran all the way there. So it's not officially ran, but some people sometimes just go ahead and run it. Russell Waddell, 2 D's and EL, Waddell. Anyway, Waddell would be, anyway, wrote, let the hilarity ensue. J Turrentine 11 wrote, one of the best top 5. Laurent Burgess wrote, so funny. At the time of its release, Moore and Reynolds were at the top of the box office game. Great childhood memories. I like this film. Savage 21136, 1136, yes, wrote, love this movie. Roger Moore was great. Nigel Dawes wrote, one of my 2 all-time favorite movies of all time since I could work the VHS player at age 4. So that's awesome. Movie Chatter Podcast, Dave over there, Movie Chatter, wrote, definitely one of my guilty pleasures. Love the open with the Countach. I said, me too. RSA 1170 wrote, great movie with 3 exclamation points and 1 fire emoji. And Donnie Be Good, also Movie Chatter. I apologize. I accidentally erased his comment because I thought I was on the part of Instagram where you do the heart and then you can delete all your stuff. But I was on my page and I scrolled it over and hit delete. And I was like, oh shit. But basically he wrote classic, Burt at the top of his game. And then he wrote that he listened to me and Tim on the Charlie Chaplin episode and that was good. So those are all the listener opinions, the most we've had. Go ahead.
That's awesome. So the thing was, I was expecting, because there is a middle finger emoji, right?
A flip off finger. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I figured that somebody, when they mentioned the doc, they were going to at least going to do the middle finger emoji.
My thing with that middle finger is a proctologist uses this finger. I don't know if you use the middle finger to get in there, but I do like when you
longer.
I know, but it's more easier to manipulate your index finger than.
Oh, that might be his tool. I mean, he may just have
I was thinking that too. It could be. It's better to dig with, is what you're saying.
Especially when you saw how quickly he just like went under,
Burt Reynolds'
nose and just swore. Yeah. I was like, oh my god!
It's like I got all the tools I need here, and it's like, oh, gross. Oh, so good. So now let's hear a word from our sponsor. You're saying, Phillip, you got a sponsor? Yeah, we do. Listen to this.
These 22-ounce fountain soft drinks cost more than these 32-ounce Big Gulps from 7-Eleven. That's a fact. 7-Eleven's quart-size drink costs less. than their 22-ounce drink. With a Big Gulp, you get a whole lot more of your favorite kind of soft drink for a little less money. And now 7-Eleven gives you even more for your money. Free plastic collector's cups featuring the stars of Burt Reynolds' new movie, The Cannonball Run. So if you want more for less, what you want is the Big Gulp from 7-Eleven.
Okay, yeah. So on the audio commentary, also that what's that guy's name? Hal Needham was like, how much did they give us? Like 7-Eleven gave us how much? And he's like, so there was a point when I'm like, okay, well, you guys are gassing up. Just go in there and get, come out with a slushie or whatever and do something there. And Dom DeLuise is like, okay. And he comes out and he's singing to that. And he goes, well, remember, we also had, I don't think it was in the movie, but he said when we had him go get the beer in the beginning, when he went into the store, he was coming out singing the Budweiser song while he was getting in, because the producer was like, I think we're the first one that actually did this product placement like this. They did it with Coors, with Smokey and Bandit, but with this, it's the Thirst Buster. It's, the Big Gulp. And those big gulps were on that commercial you heard. It's like 22. This is a 22 ounce. And then they pour 2 of those in to one big gulp. And they're like, or you can, and then they fill it up a little more. And you're like, holy shit, like that's excess. Hello. Why do people hate America? Gee, I wonder why.
Well, who was the comedian that on his show, he was like 32 ounces of anything will quench your fucking thirst.
I forget.
Bust your thirst or thirst buster, whatever the hell he said.
That's very true. Might have been that guy, Goldweight.
Ah, yes.
Anyway, you ready to discuss this thing?
Yes.
Race teams have gathered in Connecticut to start a cross-country car race. One at a time, teams drive up to the starter stand, punch a time card to indicate their time of departure, then take off. Among the teams, and we can go back because this started at the race. I didn't realize this. Among the teams, J.J. McClure, a famous racing driver and team owner, Reynolds, and Victor Prinzi, his chief mechanic. Now that's, anyway, his chief mechanic and sometime co-driver, Dom DeLuise, drive a Dodge Tradesman ambulance fitted with a NASCAR engine. Hal Needham and Brock Yates used, so I don't know if you looked up anything, but that was the ambulance that Brock Yates and Hal Needham raced in 79. They were like, let's make them, they had an idea for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and so they gave everybody like pads of paper and said, write down whatever you guys are talking about. They had 2 priests that were in a Ferrari. They had, not a chic, but they had somebody in a Rolls Royce, like driving that thing. That Rolls Royce sounded like what the fuck is in that?
Yeah.
In his Dodge Tradesman ambulance, they had a Hemi, like a Dodge Hemi motor in there, which is like what my dad used to say, like the best motor, like, real strong. So that's why he goes, that thing would like get up and roll. He goes, so, which I'll read this and I'll tell you. So Hal Needham and Brock Yates used the same vehicle in the actual 79 race. In the March 1979 race, Yates formed one of 46 teams with director Hal Needham to compete with a 150-mile-per-hour van converted into an ambulance with L.A. doctor Lyle Royer and Brock's second wife, Pamela Reynolds, riding as the patient on the gurney. Although the ambulance never made it to the finish line, the transmission gave out 50 miles short of the Redondo Beach finish line. Yates made it to the movie as a race official, and Needham as the EMT. So you saw Needham in the back of the thing when that's where they get the idea for like, he's like, oh, we get there in 5 minutes, as did the ambulance itself and even the transmission failure. So them have where he's like the transmission slipping, like that was a little ode to what happened to them.
Nice.
The ambulance was stopped once in Pennsylvania. That event made it into the movie, as did a cop stopping traffic in Kansas, exiting from a rodeo to let the ambulance pass unimpeded. So there was a separate time when he said they were driving by and there was all these people coming out of a rodeo, and the cop was like, everybody stop and like let the ambulance through, thinking it was an emergency. The Pennsylvania one is the best because that is verbatim pretty much when they get pulled over. And he's like, why can't you fly? And he's like, well, let's ask he's like, yeah, JJ, why can't we fly? He's like, shut up. And then he goes, let's ask the doctor. And he said, so they go to ask the doctor, who's a UCLA doctor that they got from UCLA, one of his friends. And he said he had all these pamphlets and these like UCLA like doctor stuff. And he said, so he hands them some papers to read, the cops, and they don't know what they're looking at. And he's like, this is what's problem. He goes, there's things on the lungs. He goes, and they kind of say it in the movie, like, we're not going through Denver because it's too high. But he's like, we're taking the southern route because the northern route is bad. We can't fly. We can't go anywhere above a certain thing. And it's like, and then they put that in the movie. And Hal Needham goes, I was going to get those cops. I was going to track them down and have them be in the movie. And then he goes, but I didn't want to push my luck. So I was like, no, we're good.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Former F1 icon and Scotch swilling Jamie Blake, Dean Martin, and his gambling obsessed teammate Morris Fenderbaum, Sammy Davis Jr., dressed as Catholic priest, drive a red Ferrari 308 GTS 1979, which is Hal Needham's actual car. They're based on an entry in the real 1972 race in which three men disguised as priests, the Flying Fathers, drove a Mercedes 280 SEL sedan, which they claim to be the Monsignor's car, belonging to an ecumenical council of prelates in California. Joe Rivers, Tara Buckman, and Marcy Thatcher, so there's that girl's name, Tara Buckman, Adrienne Barbeau, two attractive women who use their looks to their advantage, start the race in a black Lamborghini Countach. The Right Bra team was put together by rail-thin auto rider Judy Stropus, race driver Donna Mae Mims, and Peggy Nimsick, whose husband was part of another entry, driving a Cadillac limo. In the movie, it became a two-women team led by buxom Adrienne Barbeau, driving a Lamborghini. But as auto rider Stropus said decades later, a little editorial license never hurt anyone. So Yates points out in his book, Cannonball, that Stropus' version of the race does not mention the baptism with green fluid from the porta potty the three girls experienced when the limo overturned. So yeah, it's like, oh. So they were in the limo and not in a Countach, but yeah, it's like, gross. Jackie Chan and Michael Hoy. So Michael Hoy, I didn't know this. I want to look him up, but he's the Charlie Chaplin of China. Like, so I'm like, oh, that's cool. Racing a high-tech computer-laden Subaru GL four-wheel drive hatchback with a rocket booster engine. A pair of good old boys, played by Terry Bradshaw and Mel Tillis, drive a street-legal replica of Donnie Allison's Hawaiian Tropics-sponsored NASCAR Winston Cup Series Chevrolet stock car owned by Haas Ellington. Starts off as 75-76 Laguna. After they paint it, it somehow becomes a 76-77 Monte Carlo. So what was funny about that is all that, like we talked about, like advertising, like the Hawaiian Tropics, and then they had the Hawaiian Tropic girls, or like those are the actual Hawaiian Tropic girls walking around the pool and when they crash into the pool. Roger Moore plays Seymour Goldfarb Jr., heir to the Goldfarb Girdles fortune, who perpetually identifies himself as actor Roger Moore and signs into the race under that name. His character behaves similar to James Bond, and only once, by his mother, is called by his real name. He drives a silver Aston Martin DB5. This film was released around the same time as Moore's next bona fide James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only, which is a great movie. Jamie Farr portrays a wealthy, oil-rich Middle East sheik driving a white Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. So at the starting line, observing from the shadows, is Mr. Arthur J. Foyt. So, that's like A.J. Foyt. It's like a kind of joke on his name. Representative of the Safety Enforcement Unit, who tries to stop the race because of its environmental effects on safety issues. So, and then I put here that Brock Yates is the guy who gives them the rules. In the car with Foyt, George Firth is his name. We know him from other movies. He's great. Is a photographer and tree lover, Pamela Glover. She's like, you just ball your brains out. And you're like, I remember as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, like what? Did she say that? Beyond the starting line, JJ and Victor, driving their ambulance, come across Foyt and Glover, who have been involved in a minor fender bender. Glover employs JJ and Victor to help. But when they tell Foyt to enter the ambulance, I just spit all over myself because it was funny. To enter the ambulance through the back door, they kidnap Glover and take off without Foyt. So he's like, wait. And she's like, what about? And they're like, Foyt. And every time they're like, who's it? Foyt. Oh, okay. As the race progresses, Victor occasionally turns into his alter ego superhero, Captain Chaos. The very spooky, the very spooky Dr. Van Helsing, Jack Elam, and his huge hypodermic needle are also in the ambulance to help, quote unquote, keep Glover quiet during the race. So I don't think this is problematic because right away she's kind of like, what are you guys doing? And they're just like, we need you. You know, they're not molesting her. They're not, except for the doctor was like, yeah, I gave her, you know, and then they're like, what with this? Oh, okay, give her a little prick. And they're like, what?
I love the look on Burt Reynolds' face when he's still what? And he pulls out the syringe.
Well, that's something else Hal Needham and the producer were saying. They said, I don't know any other actor that could look right down the barrel of the camera. Burt Reynolds can do it and get away with it. You know, when he sees a motorcycle, when he sees Burt Convy drive by, when he's at the gas station, and he kind of looks and looks right into the camera for a second, and then he's like, okay. And then
I'm going to tell you right now, there is another actor. Uh-oh. And it's a mustache thing.
Oh, okay.
It's Magnum Pi. He did it all the time in Magnum Pi. He would look at the camera and kind of do the
but wasn't he looking at Higgins when he did that or something?
No, it was always like moments where he would just kind of stop and look at the camera and do his little, flickering of his eyebrows. And
does Jesse Hernandez or whatever that guy's name is, does he do that? The new Magnum Pi?
No, I don't think he does. I'm trying to remember.
No, but that's true. And Kiefer Sutherland, not Kiefer. What's that guy's name? Why am I drawing a blank? It's right here in front of me. There's some shirts over it. I can't see it. Christian Slater. It's my True Romance poster. Christian Slater, Cuffs. He's looking at the camera the whole time, talking to the camera.
That was
Ferris Bueller. I know that was like a Ferris Bueller. Deadpool can look into the camera and do that.
That's the fourth wall thing.
That's right. Various teams are shown either evading law enforcement, most of which deal with talking their way out of a possible ticket or concocting crazy schemes to outmaneuver their opponents. Jill and Marcy use sex appeal as their weapon, unzipping their race suits to display copious amounts of cleavage during traffic stops. However, this fails to work on a busty female traffic officer, Chip's going to tell me about in a minute, played in a cameo appearance by Mr. Smucker. That's right. Valerie Perrine. So she was just like, I want to be in the movie. And they're like, you want to show up for a date? She's like, okay, shows up for a day to do they were like, she was good in Lenny and some other things. In New Jersey, the ambulance is pulled over by state troopers. Dr. Van Helsing, drugs Glover, and JJ and Victor are able to convince the troopers that they're rushing the senator's wife to UCLA for medical treatment, offering the theory, which is JJ and Victor's happy surprise, Van Helsing's idea that the condition prevents from flying and they're driving or even driving through Denver. So that's where I said that was all real. So that was cool when you know that. The Subaru team is able to turn off their car's headlights and use infrared sensors for racing at night. He's like, this was state of the art. Like we were this didn't exist. What did exist was Hal Needham said that they did have like radar detectors and that's what they used on the ambulance. And but he was saying when Brock Yates was driving, he's driving at like 80, 85 because he had his wife in the car. He goes, when I got in the car, I'm fucking 120, like 105, whatever. And he's like, and then I'm taking these turns and they're all like freaking out. And so Subaru team is able to turn off their car. I already said that. Seymour Goldfarb is frequently shown. This is funny too, because he's always with a different girl and almost always in a different outfit. Like he's wearing something totally different.
The weird thing is the one that he's with, that is where they do the smoke and the oil slick. He's dubbed in, and I could tell that the voice was done by the lady that did Natasha from Bullwinkle. Like you
from
could
the
tell it.
from the original show, or
Yeah.
from Sally Kellerman.
From the
From the
original
original. You're like, how dare you bring up that shitty movie? All right, I'm sorry. Dave Thomas. I like Dave Thomas.
But I was like listening to it, and then I was like intently watching her move her mouth, and I was like, nope, this is not her talking.
Yeah.
This is actually the lady.
And some of that too, like that part when he does Burt Reynolds does that little goose thing, like whatever, like that's just a shot like alone by itself. Like they're talking to those girls. But so he uses James Bond gadgets such as oil slick, smoke screen, switchblade license plates, all installed in the Aston Martin DB5. Mr. Compton, Burt Convey, yeah, and Super Chief Finch, Warren Berlinger, disguise themselves as a newlywed couple on a motorcycle. But Finch's extra weight forces the two to ride across country in a continuous wheelie. So that's the wheelie king. He said, this guy, I could tell him, do a wheelie for 2 miles. The guy do a wheelie for 2 miles. Do a wheelie for 1 mile, whatever. He goes, the guy was just a pro at it. I'm like, wow. The primary robbery.
I mean, they did it on purpose to make it, to where it looks like there's 2 of them there. But when the last part, when they stop before the bikers get there, when he stops and he kind of falls forward or whatever, you could tell that there's just a little mannequin made up thing connected to the back because it flops forward. Like that. And I was like, oh yeah.
He was saying that normally maybe that part was different, but he said there were 2 stuntmen on there, but maybe only at certain times.
Yeah.
But who knows? But yeah. I was waiting for that, but I didn't notice it. The primary rivalry is between the ambulance and the Ferrari. So I wrote that Ferrari was actually Hal Needham's. And what he said, he was like, we needed cars. And I'm like, well, wait, he goes, if I just use my Ferrari, then when we're in Georgia, I can use my own car to go out at night. I don't have to be taken around or drive some rent a car. I can just drive that. So he was like, so it was twofold. It was like, we'll put it in a movie and that's my car. So in Ohio, geez, I can't read. Fenderbaum and Blake are able to convince Victor to stop. How dare you? I saw those eyebrows. I'm over here reading. When I say I can't read, Chip raises eyebrows like, well, yeah, is that new? Yeah, you can't read, period. Like, and you're trying to run the show. In Ohio, there I go again. In Ohio, Fenderbaum and Blake are able to convince Victor to stop the ambulance in order to bless the patient on board. While Blake administers the blessing, he goes, oh yeah, I need to bless her. No, you stay back. Fenderbaum flattens one of the ambulance's rear tires. JJ achieves revenge in Missouri by convincing a nearby police officer that the 2 men dressed as priests are actually communists and sex perverts who are responsible for the flashing victim in the ambulance. So there's 2 things here. One is that cop was used earlier. He was one of the cops, I think, that pulled over the girls. And so he goes, it's the same cop, but he goes, also, though, all cops look alike. And if you're focused on something like that, it's retarded because you shouldn't be. If it's a good movie, that's what else him and the producer were saying. If it's a good movie, if it's a good fun time, you don't care where the editing is. You're not going to be like, oh, that's fake. You're just going to be like, cool, I'm with it.
To a point, because like they flattened their tires and they took off. But then
you got this part. They're the ones that first pull out.
They're the ones getting the gas, pulling away, and all of a sudden they pull up behind them, and it was like, wait, they were long gone before them.
Maybe
now they're pulling up behind them to get gas. Like
maybe they got pulled over by the police. They got tickets. The ambulance doesn't get tickets
all the way the fuck around to come back to the city.
Do what? No.
Like if they took off and they went that, that's what I'm saying is that they took off after fucking with their tires. They finally get their tire fixed and they pull up to get gas. And when they're pulling away to basically leave, and he stops by the cop and says, hey, these guys, and they just pulled up. It's like they would have been long gone. They would have gotten gas miles ahead of them.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think so. I think that this could have been miles down the road. We don't know. But I'm saying they might have been pulled over by the police. It doesn't matter. But here's my thing. They get pulled over by the police because they're in a red Ferrari. So they're going to be spotted right away. and somebody's going to pull them over. The ambulance is going to be like, no, we're important. Here's a doctor and there's a woman in here. We're totally legit. Okay, go ahead. Those were the exact outfits they wore too. Those exact outfits that were in the movie. So I like here, and I've always remembered this since seeing it. And one of the reasons why picking this is because of this thing. So the cop says, "You, Shorty, where'd you get the jewelry?" And Sammy says, "Why do you call me Shorty?" And Dean says, "Because you're small. Small. SM all." And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. Like SM all, like that was hilarious. So I just always remember that. So that I didn't hear what he said. So the waitress at the taco place where Jamie Farr picks up the food, and he says, I like when he says that he will come back for her and she can be in his harem. And he gives her a ring and then backs up again and gives her money and says something. And I didn't catch it.
Me either.
And so I didn't catch it first time. Then I'm listening to the audio commentary. Second time I'm watching it. He pulls it, gives her money and says, "Get a physical," and drives off. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Because he gave her the ring to pay for the food and then gives her money. And I'm like, what? He said something. A little bit after that is when the girls in the Lamborghini get pulled over by a cop again. Oh, that was up there, but it's a female cop. So they kept getting pulled over. And then finally it's Valerie Bryan. She's like, "I hope you have a registration in there somewhere." Okay. Yeah, I do. So this part is the coolest that I always remember from a movie. Those things that stick with you is when Roger Moore hits that oil slick and that cop car goes spinning off. So that's a hydrogen peroxide rocket that's angled at 45 degrees, and they hit it and it spins. So that stuntman was like, "I'll do it." Hal Needham's like, "All right." And they hit it and the guy goes spinning. And then at the end, Hal Needham's like, "Man, that was great." And the guy goes, "Never again." No, I did not like that. No. So, but that thing's spinning so fast. You're like, holy shit. Like, how did that not just flip over or whatever? So another one of those rockets is in Jackie's car. So that's where, and they actually launched, that's not like a model. That's an actual car that they launched off a ramp, just shot.
And I thought that was cool because they're basically like for the scene, he goes, they go like this, they do the typical like like that, like the leaning back, like, oh, it's a kind of launch type of thing, and then they cut to it actually flying through the air, but you could tell that was a real car. You're like, oh yeah. So when they were making Megaforce, which I talked about earlier, were we recording when I said Megaforce? Anyway, Hal Needham directed Megaforce. It's a movie I've always wanted to see since I was little. I used to see the trailers for. Maybe that's a movie I'll do next because I've never seen it. There you
go. So I always want to see it, never got to see it. Then I hear, oh, it's shitty, it didn't do well, it sucks. It was going to be like this big old epic. They were going to do a bunch and they never did. And so they're making that. They call this guy in who says, "I make this rocket. It's called the hydrogen peroxide rocket, and here it is." And they go, okay, and they bring it into the soundstage and they tell the guy to turn it on. Security guy is like, "We need to back kind of far away." So they back up, they hit it, the thing just launches. And they're like, "Holy shit, like that was amazing." Then all of a sudden they're like, "Where did it go?" And they don't know where it went. And then shortly after that, Hal's looking out the window and he sees these fire trucks pulling up to the soundstage next to them. And where they were filming Pennies from Heaven with Steve Martin. And he's like, "There's a fire or something over there. What's going on?" They end up finding that rocket embedded into the wall and was still burning. Was like, he was like, "Oops." So, yeah. But that's amazing. So the leading teams find themselves stopped on a desert highway, waiting for construction workers to clear the road. A biker gang led by Peter Fonda. I didn't say that. I left him out of the credits because he's surprised. So is Valerie Bryan. And I think they're uncredited. I think Peter Fonda called him and was just like, "I want to be in your movie." It's like, okay. Nice. So Peter Fonda arrives and harasses Compton and Finch. It quickly escalates into a melee. Captain Chaos emerges to fight the bikers. The Subaru team also joins the fight, affording Jackie Chan opportunity to display his martial arts skills. So I put here, it's a great little fight sequence. And what else is fun? This is probably the funnest part of the movie. Like they're carrying the girls into that like abandoned gas station, and Captain Chaos goes run in there, and all these, he goes, I had like 15 stunt guys, like they're all just flying out the windows. And it's got the big guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark who died of cancer, unfortunately, like 4 or 5 years ago. Well, no, it was before that, because he was in every Indiana Jones movie, but he wasn't in Crystal Skull because he died right before Crystal Skull, so they couldn't have him in it. But he was a guy that like had became an actor, and he was a stunt guy and a guy that they knew that was, really funny and real cool. So he's in there. But what was I going to say about that it's just a cool, where they're making fun of Burt Convey in his, suit and everything. And then Burt Reynolds being like, give me somebody. And then that guy jumps on him. I kind of don't like that, but I kind of do, it's just like, because they're all in it. And that Captain Chaos goes running, and then Burt Reynolds is like, oh, now I got to go fight. Dean Martin's like, let's go help. And Sammy Davis is like, okay. And then he walks the other way. He's like, nope.
Well, and it's cool because it later on shows him on the phone. Like during the whole fight, he's on the phone. Like,
he's
he had totally other plans. Like, I got to figure out what's going on with my money.
Well, it's like they said, he's the gambling, a gambling addict who is like, after he sees the Subaru go by, he's like, what are the odds on them even finishing? And they left without clicking the thing. So if they made it, they still wouldn't win. Like, what the hell?
That's what I was wondering. I was like, they took off. They didn't click, did they? Oh, God.
Yeah. The construction crew announces that the road is open. And that's funny too. Sammy Davis on the phone going, and he's like, like whatever, makes some kind of noise and like hangs up the phone. It's hilarious. So the teams sprint back to their cars to resume the race. The ambulance falls behind the pack until Victor once again becomes Captain Chaos. So that's something else. Where was it Dean Martin or somebody was like, when he is that guy, he drives like total professional, like amazing. And you're like, oh, and then she's like, Victor, can't he help us? And so then he has the outfit and takes up, Burt Reynolds goes flying in the back, and then it plays the Lone Ranger music, which is cool, and him just coming around, like one of those awesome moments where you're like, yeah.
Well, that's why I liked, like in that fight that you were just talking about, though, when he does the dun dun dun, he doesn't just like run in and just start punching people. He jumps like, into them, like he's jumping into a pit.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God.
And talking about the dubbing thing, did you notice the girls behind him don't say anything? But when he kind of stands in front of him in the doorway after he saves them, then they're like, you're so manly, or you're so something, like they added that in later. I was like, their voices didn't move. So the vehicles all arrive at the final destination at the same time, resulting in a foot race to the finish line. JJ hands his team's time card to Victor, then ambushes the remaining racers, leaving only Victor and one of the Lamborghini women, Marcy. So what's funny about that too is, like Hal Needham says, like, this is how everybody loved being in this movie, where they let him jump on them. Like, that's all. Roger Moore's there, Dean Martin's there, Sammy Davis, like everybody's there for him to jump on. It's not like, let's do this with some stunt doubles and, from far away. No, we'll put everybody there. Farrah Fawcett, like and she comes up late and then like jumps on him. Like, it's just kind of funny. Just when it appears Victor will reach the time clock first, a spectator shouts at her baby has fallen into the water. Victor, still in his Captain Chaos persona, rushes to save the baby, later revealed to be the spectator's dog, allowing Marcy to clock in first and win the race. JJ is furious and never wants to see Captain Chaos again, but Victor replies that he does not care, becoming the persona he really wants to be, Captain USA. JJ laughs and hugs him. Foyt reappears and blames everyone for running the American highway. Seymour offers a cigar and tells Foyt to use the lighter in his car, which activates an ejection seat when pushed. Nothing happens at first, but when Seymour presses a button, Seymour, goes flying into the water. The end. So what was great about that too is Roger Moore being silly, like him falling in the water. And Hal Needham's like, we couldn't end the movie without another stunt. So I had to be like, let's do this. And and the thing also that not being sued is like everybody knows that there's buttons in the DB5. Don't push any of the buttons. And so whenever he was like, so we're just hoping that people know when she goes to push a lighter, like, no, don't do that. And then the other girl, no, don't do that. You know, it's kind of a running gag. And then, you know, and then they're like, well, what happened? And what's funny and weird about this, that I think this is what maybe throws people off, is that ending where all of a sudden JJ just starts laughing. It's for one that they're in the race for fun, but for two that it's just the nonsensicalness of him being like Captain Chaos and Captain USA and being like, and then just, you know, it's nothing, you know, it's just silliness.
It leads you into thinking it's going to be a really serious ending.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that happened. It was very much like he looked like he was really going to start crying, and that that Burt Reynolds was going to feel bad for treating him that way, that he was in the wrong kind of a situation. And then all of a sudden it was like, that's fine. And it comes up and I wanted to be Captain USA anyway. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody starts laughing.
Yeah. And with that too, there was a scene. So Hal Needham made a joke about that scene with Farrah Fawcett and Burt in the back of the ambulance, where he's like, well, my dad used to do this, and like telling the story. And he goes, it seems so, you know, it's just so out of place in a way. And he goes, but there was a thing with, he goes, on Cannonball Run 2, Burt Reynolds and what's the girl's name that keeps being resurrected as other people? Red-haired lady. She was in the original Ocean's 11. She was in The Apartment. She was in 2 Meals for Sister Sarah. Come on, Chip, help me out. Her name is on the tip of my tongue. It starts with an S. An S. Hang on. Bear with us, everyone. I know you're all yelling. Just bear with me.
Keep yelling. Just keep yelling. Maybe he'll get it.
Oh, I almost had it when you just started talking, and now I can't think of... Her name is Shirley MacLaine. I told you. Yes. So him and Shirley MacLaine are in Cannonball Run 2, Burt Reynolds and her. Burt Reynolds and her have talked now, and they're like, we should have this really like emotional, cool scene off the side of the road. And he's like, so I'm like, okay. So I said, well, let's do it at like 4 a.m. or whatever, when the sun's coming up. He's like, okay. They do their scene. He's like, I'm filming it. I'm asking the guy, did we get it? Does it look beautiful? Everything? The guy's like, yeah. Burt Reynolds and Shirley MacLaine, you guys good with it? Yeah, we're happy with it. Okay. He goes, in my head, I'm going, I'm never putting this in the fucking movie. This slows it way down. Like, fuck it. And he goes, but I filmed it because sometimes you just got to placate those people and be like, okay. So, and something else that, so that house that Roger Moore's mom lived in, that's in like Atlanta and Georgia somewhere. And Burt Reynolds liked that house so much that he bought it. And then Hal Needham's like, I don't think he ever went there. I think he bought the house at the time. And then probably he was like, this would be a good oasis to go to. And then never even went back.
Oh, wow.
But
rich people.
So the film continued director Hal Needham's tradition of showing a gag reel of bloopers during the closing credits, a practice he started with Smokey and the Bandit 2. Jackie Chan says this inspired him to do the same at the end of most of his films. So that part's really cool. So reviews. Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus reads, Cannonball Run casts a bevy of famous faces as its wacky racers, but forgets to give them characters to play, resulting in 90 dull minutes that feel like a marathon. The film was followed by the sequels, Cannonball Run 2 from 1984 and Speed Zone from 1989. Are you aware of this movie?
No.
Speed Zone has, now I don't think that's Armed and Dangerous, because it can't be, because it's about racing. The other one's about like border or something. But it's got them in it, John Candy and Eugene Levy, I think. Okay. But it's done by Hal Needham. It's another race movie. So I need to watch this movie. So part of me was almost thinking what I'll do next week is Cannonball Run 2 and Speed Zone, but I don't know. So the Cannonball Run and Cannonball Run 2 were the final film appearances of actor Dean Martin. Film also featured Jackie Chan in his second Hollywood role after the big brawl. Warner Brothers has acquired the rights to the Cannonball Run franchise, and in 2016, so that was 5 years ago, Ethan Cohen to write and direct a remake of Cannonball. Andre Morgan and Alan Gassmer are producing. On June 4th, 2018, it was announced that Doug Liman was in early talks to direct the film from a script by Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben Garant. So you know Thomas Lennon because he was in Your Odd Couple, and Robert Ben Garant is the other guy in Reno 911 with him, the guy with the glasses and the mustache, the dark-haired guy.
Oh, okay.
So they're writing partners. So they were work. So it'd be funny if they did it. Like that'd be good. But that was 2018, and Doug Liman, I think he's, Edge of Tomorrow did so well that, a kind of an underground hit that they're finally going to do a sequel to that. So, but who knows? Tom Cruise is doing all those Mission Impossible. You don't like Edge of Tomorrow?
No, I just didn't think it would be something you would make a sequel to.
Well, I think everybody liked it so much, and you could have more aliens, and you could have, I don't know if you'd have Tom Cruise still having premonitions or how that would work. I don't know. How many celluloid hearts out of 5 do you give it?
I left my ass off.
Be honest. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I left my ass off, so it'd have to be like 4.5 or 5 because it was just enough. Like it had more to it. There was more ammunition because there were so many players on the field.
Yeah.
To create the comedy. I think it was too hard for Smokey and the Bandit to make comedy all the time.
Right. Yeah. So you had the car stuff.
They were trying to do the
and that's where
the thing between him and her in the car, kind of a thing, and make it toward they're falling for each other. So it wasn't there. But with this, that's all it was. It's just rat race.
Yeah. That's what somebody else said who was younger. I was listening to some other thing, and they were like, what this reminds me of is a movie called Rat Race that I hated. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I guess so. But it's also like somebody else said, this is like a live version of Wacky Races. Like that's what you and I used to watch as a cartoon growing up that's exactly it. Or the what's that one with Tony Curtis? The Amazing Race? The one with Jack Lemmon being a bad guy.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you fucker. Come on,
I never
Chip,
saw
help me
it.
out.
I never saw it.
Sometimes you never saw it. Oh man, that's what we need to do next then. Hang on a minute. Tony Curtis. I think it's called The Great Race. Yeah, that's what it's called. Hang on. Tony Curtis. Wow, it's not even here. Anyway, let's say The Great Race. Yeah, it is The Great Race, but I don't have it here. But anyway, it's a great race. So that one, it's like that, where that's like wacky and funny, but that's like in the 18, like right when cars are coming, like in the early 1900s. I give it at first so I watched it recently. You haven't seen it since what? Since cable in the mid 80s. Yeah.
Yep.
So I had seen it semi recently because I bought it at Walmart on DVD for $5. I was like, holy shit, this, like, you always see like the regular movies that are always there. I'm like, okay, I already own I Am Legend or whatever. So I'm like, oh sweet. So I grab it. And then so I'd watched it, and then I watched it this time, and I'm like, maybe it's not as good as Smokey and the Bandit. But then I rewatched it with the commentary and got more out of like how much fun they all had, and also more of what it means to me, which is what this podcast is about, is what we grew up with, what sticks in your head. And it's the Countach thing, it's the girls, it's Captain Chaos, it's the fight, it's all of that. So I would say probably 4 hearts. But yeah, it's fun. I wasn't sure how you would take. I was worried that you'd be like, you had me buy this movie and I fucking hated it, and now you owe me $5 or whatever you paid.
Well, now I really want to watch the second one.
Yeah, me too. That's where I'm leaning to as well. Oh shit, we were gonna get to Phil's film favorite, but now I gotta figure out what I watched recently. So bear with me, everyone. And then but you had a fun time. You want to wrap this up somehow? You got a wrap up for this movie?
Not really. I mean,
or for our connection, like Smoking the Bandit, like a Burt Reynolds thing. First of all, I want to.
There is one dude that is in both movies.
Yeah, it's Burt Reynolds. Duh.
No,
God,
I
so
mean it's not
stupid.
the dude.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
like one of the actual like side people.
Uh-huh.
The passenger guy that was driving in the truck that kept losing the brakes.
Oh yeah.
Not the passenger, but
Yeah,
well, he was eventually driving when they lost the brakes.
The white guy.
Yeah, the white guy, because he was the one that was the police officer that pulled over Jackie Gleason for the car being a total shit, and he was giving him crap and everything. And Jackie Gleason go, oh, and he got out of the.
Oh right.
They started yelling at him and chastising him. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir." And then he,
and that black guy, I was gonna look him up. That guy, I like when he's like, "What do you think? You're the president?" Well, I never stole, and he's just hilarious, and they're all great, and just what was the thing I was looking up that we were? Oh yeah, my movies. But yeah, I mean, I would think of it as when we grew up with like Burt Reynolds, and like later on it was Arnold, and it was Stallone, and it was all that, and so it's that thing of just it's hard to explain like why these mean so much. It's growing up with them. It's the whole reason why I started the podcast, is like, well, Smoking the Bandit and this and that, and so okay, I think my first of all, I want to say, so for Phil's film favorite of the week, I'm going to give an honorable mention to a movie that I'd never seen. I don't know if you've seen it, called Wild at Heart. It's a David Lynch movie with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern in it.
Yeah, I think
he wears like a snakeskin jacket, and
where he acts a lot like Elvis type of a dude or something.
Yeah, he even sings an Elvis song at the end to her, which is really him singing, which I'm like, I think he has a hard on for Elvis. And then when he got with Elvis's daughter, it was like, oh, this is primo everything, and now he's got a kid with her. So now he's like, my kid's got Elvis blood. Sweet. I mean, he had a kid with her later. I don't know how old. Oh yeah, that kid's older now. Is that the kid that was in? Anyway, it's in the movie. But the one that is the one for this week, because we already talked about Smoking Bandit last week, is To Live and Die in L.A. Do you remember that movie? Willem Dafoe, William Peterson was the cop, and it had the guy from Mad About You, his cousin. He's in it. He plays like his cop buddy. And it was so Willem Dafoe is a counterfeiter, and William Peterson works for the Secret Service, and he's investigating. And it's a really cool cop thing. It's done by the director William Friedkin. That's where I was telling you I saw Friedkin and he looked weird. Directed by William Friedkin. Another badass car chase scene in there that's fucking amazing. And he was like, the only way we can do this is better than French Connection. So they're like, yeah. He goes, okay, I agree, it is. Let's do it. And then something back to Cannonball Run. So that jumping of the train, that producer was like, you were all cool. Like, you're a stunt guy. You were like, I'm ready to jump this thing. He goes, I was a nervous wreck. Like that flat part right in the middle of the train. Like, I'm like, are they going to make it? And they do. And he's like, holy shit. And they're like, how many cars did we wreck? They're like, oh, we wrecked a lot. It was but they made that movie in 35 or 36 days. Wow. That's how loosey-goosey it was. And then something else that I was thinking of, now I forget. Hal Needham was just I don't know. He said when he stays in the hotels, he stays with the cast and crew, or with the crew. So he said, like, Burt Reynolds and everybody's in the more expensive hotel rooms in Tucson or wherever they're filming. And he's like, I'm down with the crew, in a cheaper motel. And he goes, and my wife at the time was like, it's like, oh, we're staying here. Like, and he's like, I always stay with my crew. That's what I do. If you don't like it, then, and he said, even Dom DeLuise was like, I'll stay with you guys, and went down there and stayed, with them. So he said it was just great. But yeah, I wanted to dedicate this to all those people. Roger Moore's dead. Burt Reynolds passed away. Farrah Fawcett. And it sucks because Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson died the same day, and everybody talks about Michael Jackson. Nobody talks about Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah.
And Jamie Farr's still with us. Adrienne Barbeau's still with us. I think that blonde girl is. The Jackie Chan, of course, that other guy, the chaplain of Hong Kong. But Peter Fonda passed away, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Mel Tillis, Terry Bradshaw's still with us. So it's like all these greats that we grew up with that are just like, gone. And that's what's going to happen. There'll be a day when we'll be like, remember that Stallone guy before he passed away from roid overdose? I don't know.
Well, and the big thing about this movie is the fact that all these people that they got were from so many different places, like football players, singers from different genre of singing, country, and and it was, but they all had their own personalities, such big personalities that I don't know if they could do that again now. Like a lot of the bro country type singers now, they're all the same. They all sound the same. They all act the same. Nobody's got their own, like, I mean, I understand with Mel, he had his.
Well, it's like you and I said, there's that thing of, I wasn't sure if you listen to country, but I guess you do, you and Katie. It's that thing of, I listen to the George Jones stuff, and there's nobody singing like George Jones anymore. There's nobody singing kind of fun. I mean, maybe what's his name? That guy that was big with the Whiskey for My Horses. That guy might have sang kind of some fun songs, but Jerry Reed sang like, I gave her she gave me the shaft, I gave her a gold mine, she gave me the shaft, or whatever that song is, like stuff like that. That's just fun. But yeah, it's all that stuff.
But they would have to to make a Cannonball Run now, they would have to find different people from all over the place. Just get all the biggest names that they could frickin' find. To turn it into basically like a Fast and the Furious.
But also different than like, I hear that they're doing another Expendables movie, but it's like, but not like that. Those are all action stars. You need like, Daniel Craig to show up and play like somebody like a Roger Moore, something like that, just weird. And then have Lady Gaga in there playing somebody, and then have, somebody from, John Travolta or something be in there and be just some weird character or whatever, and just have all these different style of acting and different things, and just be like improv. And maybe, and that's what else is crazy, is usually only comedic actors can do improv. But these are like, Dean Martin knows improv, but also he's worked with Sammy before in the clubs, and with Jerry Lewis, knows how to work back and forth with each other. So like, some of that's built in. Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise were friends, so they knew how to play off of each other. And they were also saying only Dom DeLuise could put on where you'd believe somebody like Captain Chaos. Somebody else does that, you're going to go, what? But Dom DeLuise, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Well, see, and this would be a situation where just to set a tone, is I would have this movie be directed by somebody who isn't Kevin Smith, but I would still have Silent Bob, Jay and Silent Bob in the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Have them in their own car doing their own shit.
Yeah. Almost win. Yeah. It'd almost be like you could do that with, you could have,
take characters from things, and put
them
in
and
there.
You could have James Caan and Alan Arkin. They were in a movie back in the 70s called Freebie and the Bean, and they were cops. You could have them in a car together, like racing, like just, and you're like, wait, those are the guys from, are they playing the same character, or just, whatever, just, anybody and everybody, and just, you have, you dress up Harrison Ford, not that he'd ever do it, Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill, and you have them in a car playing like some stoner hippies or something, and they're driving.
No, I would have them together being the Padres. They would actually be
yeah. No, that'd be good. But yeah, who knows? I mean, hopefully they'll do something like that. Dang it. I'm trying to figure out what movie should I do next, Chip. So Chip's wife has a birthday party next week. So I'm trying to figure out, should I do Passenger 57 or should I just do Cliffhanger just for a week? And then the next week, you and I do what we were going to do, our childhood.
You know, you could
Or-
just bang that shit together, take Cliffhanger and take Passenger 57 and get Demolition Man, motherfucker.
I was thinking of that, but you should be there for Demolition Man with our Taco Bell and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Damn it.
But yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that was after, right? Yeah, they did that after. Illuminate. Yeah.
What do you do with the seashells? He doesn't know what to do with the shell.
Nobody still knows. I looked it up on IMDb. I looked it up like, what are the shells? Like, they have to be an explanation. Like a David Lynch movie, there's got to be an explanation. David Lynch won't tell you, and neither will whoever that director was.
Nope.
But anyway, should I? Okay, I'm going to say Passenger 57. If things change, I'll let everybody know. But let's say 1992. Okay, so come back on December 8th for...
The flight is in the air. Hijackers are on board.
Who's in charge?
You are.
One passenger is fighting back.
You, back to your seat.
God, please!
Wesley Snipes is Passenger 57.
Chill out. I'm one of the good guys.
Terror at 40,000 feet and climbing. Passenger 57.
Tell me you're good at this.
I'm the best. Rated R. Starts Friday, November 6th at a theater near you.
That's right. From 1992, it's Passenger 57. Always bet on black, Chip. Always. Yeah.
Always.
That's the only thing that I think I didn't like was he was too tough. You know, you like a John McClane who's like a, you know, who's just kind of like, I guess I got to do something. You know, I'm stuck under a table and this guy's shooting at me. I guess I have to shoot the guy now. I can't break this glass in this thing to get out. Yeah. To yell for help. So, yeah.
For whatever reason, my brain went also from Passenger 57 to Snakes on a Plane.
Well, there we go. Die Hard on a. Well, my thing is Die Hard on a ... and then it'll be Passenger 57. Because remember back then, that was the rage. Was like, hey, Die Hard came out in '88. What if we had a movie called Speed? Die Hard on a bus. Die Hard on a plane. Die Hard, as Chip told me, on a naval ship.
Yes, aircraft carrier. Yeah.
An aircraft carrier. Die Hard on a mountain, you know. And, you know, so Passenger 57, maybe not totally in my head and heart, but I do remember certain scenes. And I remember watching that going, oh man, that's really cool. Like, because I was working on a script for Die Hard in a Mall. And then Chip was like, Dean Cain was in that movie. And I was like, fuck you. That's a horrible movie. And I forget the name of it, but I remember I saw it at the video.
How horrible it was
working there. Exactly. And I was like, oh my God, this could have been better. But Chip had a funny thing that Joe and I make fun of every once in a while is the guy's hiding from the bad guys and he's in a gorilla suit or he's in a skiing outfit. And so he looks like a skier mannequin, but he's actually him. And then he beats up the guy. I think Chip's idea was a gorilla. My idea was a skier. So now whenever I think of it, I think of a gorilla on skis, but yeah. So yeah, it's weird. But anyway, certain movies stick with you. They stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us in My Celluloid Heart, keep watching movies. Do you have anything to say, Chip? You got something?
No.
I was trying to think. Either something of what you're up to, what they might look out for, but also like a thing all I could think of was Bet on Black or something from Cannonball Run, which was I don't know. Got nothing.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's right. There you go. Chip is Captain Chaos.
So watch this movie because you want to see him.
Yes, and the boobs. Him and the boobs. Yeah.
Him and the boobs.
You got the girl at the taco shop.
A new script. Him and the boobs.
Him and the boobs. There you go. Part 4. You got or part 3 if you're following Dom DeLuise. You got the girl in the taco shop with her little cleavage. You got Valerie Perrine. And then you got the 2 girls. So
that's all you need.
Yep, exactly. But all right, everyone. Well, yeah, of course. I'm wearing no bra all the time. Yes, please. I'll take it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Farrah Fawcett. Rest in peace.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Rest
and
in
your
peace.
your poster of your red bathing suit. All right. We're gonna stop recording now. Bye everyone.
Bye.